All right, NYB community, thank you for coming back. Episode number 255 of the Minding Your Business podcast, entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. We're recording this live March the 15th on Monday, 2021. We have crossed over 1 year into our glorious COVID-19 life as we know it. Think about it. 1 year ago, matter of fact, this week I was coming back from Orlando, Florida at a bankers conference, and then they were telling adults to wash their hands, right? Which, is always a little funny when you have to tell 1,000 bankers to make sure they wash their hands and not shake hands. Well, some of those old greaseball bankers are not accustomed to not being able to wash hopefully they wash their hands, but shake hands, right? And so there was still some of that going on. I get back from Memphis, and then, of course, the National Basketball Association, the NBA, shuts down, and then the whole world just turns on its head, right? And I'm sure we all thought, it's going to last a couple weeks. We'll get back. It's just they just have to get this all under control, right? And here we are, 1 year later. Everybody's been having fun for the last year, wearing masks and socially distancing and all that type of thing. So that's where we are here as we find ourselves at episode 255. Just to digress a little bit, hope that you're all doing well. Subscribe to the podcast, 5-star, wherever you get your pods. Helps us to continue to grow the MYB community. And, of course, you can always check me out at shampronbrooks.com. I'm excited about today's guest. She came in all cheery. She was on fire for Monday, so I'm excited. I'm excited to have some folks on Clubhouse. I apologize. I didn't realize that it was going to take a little while to get the Clubhouse club approved. Otherwise, I would have set it up earlier. But I had the eureka idea to set up the podcast club. For those of you that use the Clubhouse app for the podcast, I looked to do that, and my guest today, Nicki Krawczyk, was going to be kind of the guinea pig for doing this. However, it didn't quite work out 100%, Nicki, but hey, what can you say?
It's okay. You know what it is? It's another reminder that I need to actually be active on Clubhouse, and I need to do more stuff on there.
No doubt. It's been tremendous. I've been on it several weeks now, and I've seen that, Nicki, some people have gotten addicted to it, which I've refrained from, spending so much time on it. But I've gone in the rooms on Clubhouse where, you'll go in at night, and then the same people are on in the morning. It's like, what? I mean, nobody goes to sleep anymore, and what are you people doing?
Yeah. Well, and I'm on the East Coast, so West Coasters will start stuff at like 9:00. So I'll pop up on my phone at midnight and go, oh no, that's not happening.
Exactly. So, yeah, Nicki is the founder of Filthy Rich Writer. And so she's been a copywriter for over 15 years and working for, some really large clients, recognizable clients from, Hasbro to Adidas to TripAdvisor to Marshalls and beyond. And so we want to get into some of her background, learn a little bit about her and let her pour into us, with some best practices and insights. So, Nicki, why don't we start? Let's get into your background. Tell us a little bit about yourself and, kind of how you came to be Nicki Krawczyk.
It was a sunny day 41 years ago.
Right.
Now it's so my background, like you said, is in copywriting. I've been doing it for more than 15 years, getting real close to 20 years. Yeah. And the kind of genesis of it is, and actually I drove home to visit my parents this past weekend, very safe and all that kind of thing. But I said to them at the kitchen table, I said, do you guys realize how much I talk about you on a regular basis? Every podcast I'm on, I talk about you guys. And they said, no, we had no idea. But my dad was a marketing director, and he's retired now. He was a marketing director, and in high school, a billion years ago, he used to bring home extra work for me to do. And copywriting, as you know, is marketing and advertising writing. So I kind of learned how to do it there. Flash forward to college, went to school for PR, didn't love it. Went into event management for a health club, did some health club management. Was okay, but it wasn't feeding my passions. And I was kind of trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. And the other half of the Krawczyk parents equation, my mom, sent me a book. And this was, before Amazon. So she literally went to the bookstore, then went to the post office and put it in the mail to me, because that's what moms do.
Of course.
And it was a book called something like The Six-Figure Writer, something like that. And it was, the book itself was, it said stuff like, you need to buy a fax machine for your home office. And so like dubious advice. But my mom, the book itself, reminded me about copywriting. And I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that I could do this for a living. And the funny thing is there are a lot of writers out there who either are not aware of copywriting or don't even realize that it is a career that they could go into, despite the fact that copy is so incredibly prevalent. A lot of writers really don't know about it.
Wow. So what should we know about it? So there's some folks listening that are authors or aspiring authors, right? And I'm an author as well, and have familiarity obviously with copywriting. But kind of your definition, Nicki, and when you're working with clients, how do you define copywriting, and what should we know?
Absolutely. Well, I think probably even before we get into the definition, one of the first things that writers need to know, people who love to write, is that copywriting exists. Because right. you heard this a lot, I'm sure, when you were growing up, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners heard it too. Writers don't make any money. If you want to be a writer, you have to plan to be poor, or you have to write on the nights and weekends while you work your day job, that kind of thing.
Right.
And I heard that too. I absolutely heard that too. But sadly, for the most part, it's true. Novelists don't make a lot of money. Even journalists don't make a lot of money. Bloggers, all that kind of stuff. But copywriters do, because what copywriting is, it is, as I said, it's marketing and advertising writing. It is the writing in companies' emails, on their websites, on their packaging, on their banner ads, on their what's the word I'm looking for? Billboards, all that kind of. Everything that is messaging coming from a company that is designed to persuade or to sell is copy. And obviously that's a massive amount. Like, I guarantee that everyone can look within like 3 to 5 feet of them and find copy literally at this moment. And the thing about copy too, I would say it's designed to sell or persuade. I think a lot of people go, oh no, I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to be, but it's, I don't want to do that. But that's really only, it's not about being salesy or about being pushy. It's about creating a connection, because you have an audience that has a want or a need, and you have a company or an organization that has a great solution to that want or that need. And as a copywriter, it's your job to make the connection between the two by writing copy that conveys how this organization has that great solution in ways that really resonate with that audience, that make them understand it and really make them want to take that action, that make them go, oh, wow. Oh, yes, this is what I need. And that's what copywriting really does.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I get to my next comment, shout out to my guy, Charlie Crenshaw, one of the great creators here in the Memphis, Tennessee area, Nicki. Has a great comment. Man, you're killing it with the podcast, and I want to recognize that. Salute to you. I had an opportunity to be on his podcast as well. So, Charlie's tremendous. I've known him for years. His family's really engulfed here in the community as he is, man. So thank you, Charlie, for that comment, my man. I really appreciate it. And Nicki, thank you for that breakdown of copywriting, because I think a lot of people miss that there's so much opportunity, right? When you look, like you say, when you ask that question about kind of just like looking around you, I looked around me, and of course I'm just surrounded by copy, right? I've got real estate stuff everywhere. I've got business. I got the podcast stuff. I've got your bio up. I've got copy everywhere, right? We're always surrounded by it. And I think a lot of people miss the opportunity, 2 areas. One, that there's a lot of career opportunities, right, in copy. and then also from an entrepreneurship standpoint or a business standpoint, there's a lot of opportunities for you to get in and kind of create your own lane, and satisfy needs of a niche audience, by working independently, within your own company. And so I think it's amazing when you take a step back and really look at it. You know, we go through our everyday lives, right? And we were talking about COVID and all that type of thing, which we'll get more to here in a little bit. But you know, we go through our lives, Nicki, and don't even realize that we see this and interact with this stuff all the time, everywhere we go. Yeah, I think that's amazing. And
Yeah, well, I mean, every single organization or company needs messaging, needs great copy. Now, not every one is going to hire a copywriter, even though they probably should. But when you think and that's every single one, from like the mom and pop bakery around the corner to the there are so many companies and organizations out there. When you start, one of the things that we have our students do is just start making a list of potential people that they could reach out to, potential companies that they could reach out to. And then, you know, branch out from there. We have kind of a system for getting them to find new opportunities. And, you know, we start out with a challenge, like, okay, write down 50 companies. And they're like, oh, it's going to be so hard, 50 companies. And then we tell them how to do it. And they go, oh, wow, I hit 50. And then I just kept going. And I had to stop myself at 200 or 250. There's just a massive amount of opportunity for skilled, trained copywriters.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, we talked a little bit too, Nicki, about, you know, for authors, right, and the importance of copywriting for authors. But yeah, I want to stay there from organizations, because again, a lot of folks listening work for organizations and or have their own company. In your opinion, why is it important to have someone with that skill set on your team? You know, often we talk about it, you know, in business, you know, you want to have your accountant or your CPA, you want to have your kind of advertising guru. If you've got that, you got to have your product person or your service person. You know, we have all these experts, but you really never hear having someone that's skilled in copywriting as a part of your team or your organization. Why do you think that is? And, you know, why do you think it's important that we should have one? Or should have somebody with that skill set?
Yeah, you don't tend to hear it with the smaller, newer kind of companies, which is a big mistake, because messaging is so incredibly important. If you want your business to succeed, and of course you want your business to succeed, right? It is so incredibly important. You know, if you can't convey what it is that you do or what you sell in a compelling way, nobody's going to buy it. You know, you just amazing pictures and whatever on a website, but if the messaging's not there, nobody's going to buy it. But you could put up a white page with black text, and if the messaging is really good and it connects with what people want and need, it's going to sell. Messaging, the funny thing is, and I could say this because I am an entrepreneur and I have done the same thing myself, but I've also seen it in hundreds of entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs tend to leave messaging to the last thing. You know, like, oh, I get my website going. My website looks so great. Get my social media profile. I take my branding pictures and all that stuff. And believe me, it's fun. But messaging is probably, aside from what it is you sell, and maybe sometimes even a little bit more important, but it is the most important element of your business. If you can't convey what it is, the value of what you sell, nobody's going to buy it. And if nobody buys it, then you don't have a business.
Right. And you know what? It's so important, you know, when you talked about like social media and the way that we connect with people and the way we go to market. And I want to tie this into today's, you know, kind of lane, you know, Nicki, in terms of the pandemic. And, you know, you're somewhat being facetious, somewhat truthful, but somewhat being facetious at my opening about coming to the 1 year mark in terms of how we've been dealing with it here in the United States. But the importance of proper messaging, because, you know, it's so easy just to put out characters, right? And just to put out sentences and try to have the best bios and different things. But understanding, you know, the creative ways that you could put messaging out that resonate with your audience, your existing audience, and your potential audience, I think gets lost in the ease in which we can put messaging out. And so that kind of leads me to, this thought of where we are today, a year into the pandemic, and how we've had to pivot in the way that we communicate. Initially when the pandemic first hit, everybody was kind of just sour, having to be at home. What did people turn to? Their phone, right? The great equalizer, right? They turned to their cell phone, right? And they started connecting with people, of course, online. So things on social media and things like that even became that much more prevalent. Talk about that, the importance of messaging kind of through that, as we're kind of in the midst, or some would say in the middle of this pandemic, where like right now, I think it's really intriguing. I'd love to hear your answer on this. Is where there's some positives or what people would consider positives with the vaccine and people getting vaccinated, and this hope that we're going to kind of turn the corner with things, and what does that look like? Right, once it's done, but we're still kind of engulfed in it. So talk about that messaging at this unique stage in kind of the environment, right? As it relates to, individuals and brand ambassadors and companies, and how to best kind of, align their message so that it does continue to resonate, even as people may get back to doing things, in a face-to-face environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you're exactly right. This year was, not this year, last year, just feels like one long year. Right. Businesses were challenged to adapt or die, right? And I don't say that lightly, because very unfortunately, there are many businesses that were not able to stick with it, to survive, which is horrible. But many businesses that were able to adapted how they did business. Restaurants pivoted to just takeout, or they pivoted to also offering like grocery items and that kind of thing. Dance studios, just off the top of my head, because a friend of mine owns dance studios, pivoted to online learning and, distance teaching and all that kind of stuff that they would have never thought about before. And that was how they stayed relevant and how they kept paying their bills. But all of that can't happen if you can't communicate that to your target audience. Like a lot of our copywriting students kind of got, as this all began to happen, a lot of our copywriting students got really, really concerned that they weren't going to be able to find any clients, or that they were, what's the word I'm looking for? Like begging for work to have the money. And I said, whoa, guys, that is not what this is about. As someone who has worked as a freelancer through a recession, the first time I hit six figures as a copywriter was in 2008, right as the Great Recession was ramping up, and right after I left a full-time job. The thing about a recession, or when the economy gets crazy, now we've been through a pandemic, so I can talk about that too. But in those scenarios, the businesses that survive get hyper-focused on selling. And a major component of selling is getting your messaging in line and communicating the way that you need to. Right. And so a lot of our students who were nervous and scared found a lot more success, maybe not than they would have previously, but they found a lot of success and helped a lot of companies stay in business. And to your other point, I think one of the things that as we were heading into the pandemic, as we're, fingers crossed, heading out of the pandemic, businesses need to stay focused on their consumers, on their customers, on the messages their customers need to hear. I think sometimes, putting my entrepreneur hat, sometimes as entrepreneurs, we have messages that we want to put out, right? Facts. And we forget about what our audience actually wants and needs to hear. And as much as we love our businesses, and as much as we're hyper-focused on ourselves and our businesses, fundamentally, our businesses are about providing value to the people who want what we have to offer. And as the environment changes, as what's going on in the world changes, we need to stay hyper-focused on communicating to our customers what they need to hear and what they want to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely facts. Our guest today, Nicki Krawczyk, the founder of Filthy Rich Writer, joins us here on episode number 255 of the Minding Your Business podcast. Shout out to everybody that's on IG Live, everybody that's on Facebook Live, and especially our folks that are hopping in and out here on Clubhouse, on the Clubhouse app. So definitely shout out to all of you. Nicki, Filthy Rich. Right. So yeah, when I saw that name, I chuckled. Just like you did. I did the same thing. I chuckled at that. You don't look like someone that would have a business that would be called Filthy Rich.
What? I don't look filthy rich? Come on. Jeez.
No, you look filthy rich. I wouldn't think of your business being named Filthy Rich.
Well,
so what does that mean? What does Filthy Rich mean for you in the name of your business?
Exactly. To me, being filthy rich means having a job you love, doing it well, and getting paid well to do it. And that's what copywriting is. For me, for our many, many students, and for, frankly, for many other copywriters. That name. Every time I start running a new set of Facebook ads or Instagram ads, I have to tell our team, like, okay, brace for it, because I know you're going to get comments about it. Some people really hate that name, really hate it. But really? Oh yeah, of course. I mean, let's face it. In the middle of the night, people who are commenting on Facebook ads hate just about everything. But right. I don't know what they're doing. But
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is that I named my company Filthy Rich Writer because so many of us grew up hearing that writers don't make any money. And what I wanted people to do was to read that name, Filthy Rich Writer, and go, wait a minute, really? Is that a thing? Is that possible? And the thing is, I don't need you to believe me. Just do a little bit more research, find out a little bit more. The funniest thing to me is that copywriting is one of the best kept secrets, maybe in any career, because there are copywriters in so many, like the biggest organizations, the most successful businesses, I guarantee you have copywriters, work with copywriters, bring in freelance copywriters, all this kind of stuff. But for some reason, and maybe it's because you can't major in it in college, maybe, I don't know. But it is such a phenomenally fantastic career in so many different ways, but so few writers actually know what it is, and that it is a possibility, and that there are, thousands and thousands of successful working copywriters on staff, or freelance, or any of that kind of stuff. It's astounding.
Yes, absolutely. Now, do you have any other
I called
copywriters
it that because really I wanted to send their tracks.
Yeah.
When over the past year or so, I've added more members to my team, brought on a couple of people full time, and I went back and stole one of the writers I worked with 10 years ago. I actually trained her in copywriting 10 years ago, and she's been working ever since then. And when I realized I needed a head coach and I needed a marketing manager, I said, hey, Kate, would you be available? Is this something you'd be interested in?
Right.
So yeah, we have lots of copywriters working with us in our company. And then of course we also have our student coaches as well. It's lots of copywriting, lots of need for copy.
Yep, absolutely. Talk to us some, Nicki, about you kind of along those lines as you built your team out, and you mentioned that copywriting is not typically a major that you find at most colleges and universities. So how do people get into the industry? And talk about it, I guess, from 2 points of view, right? One, from kind of the working career. So someone that's listening to this that they themselves, or they may have children that are entering say those college years, and there's an interest or could be an interest in copywriting. What's kind of the pathway for them, so to speak. And then on the flip side, for someone that's maybe somewhat a little more established, or maybe is aspiring, but wants to do, kind of follow the same footsteps that you've kind of blazed, that same path, how can that individual kind of, continue to grow in this field?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I was saying, it is crazy to me that you can't major in copywriting anywhere. Like you can major in marketing and maybe you'll have like a couple of classes about copywriting, maybe, but
Yeah.
it's a full career, so there's a lot to learn and there's a lot to be trained on. And I was very fortunate in that my dad was a marketing director and, kind of taught me the basics. And then of course, when I got started the 15 plus years ago, I learned a lot there and I made a lot of mistakes. I'm sure I missed out on a lot of opportunities, all that kind of thing. But so roughly 8 years or so ago, I created the program that I wish that I could have had when I got started. Everything about how to write copy and the advanced techniques about how to write copy, into, how to build your portfolio, how to build your experience, how to land clients, how to regularly land clients so you don't have to worry about income coming in. But I think that one of the biggest mistakes that people make, whenever, and still happens every once in a while when people say, oh, copywriting is so hard to get into. I always ask, where did you learn copywriting? Where did you, just out of curiosity? And almost to a person, they will say, oh, well, I'm a really good writer. So I just started calling myself a copywriter and that doesn't work. It's like, okay, no kidding. You found it hard. You don't know how to write copy. If you don't know how to write copy, no one's going to pay you to write copy.
Right.
It's a specialized career. Like you were talking earlier about companies having accountants, companies having, like, would you hire someone who just one day decided to call themselves an accountant? And they're like, yeah, you know what? I know numbers. I know adding, subtracting, low multiplication. You know what?
I'm sure that happens
now. Yeah, right. Be careful, entrepreneurs. Be careful with who you give your money and be careful with who you give your messaging. But it's, in the same way that you wouldn't be like, oh, sure, multiplication. You can be my accountant. The same way, people should be very careful about who they trust their messaging to. And someone who wants to be a copywriter needs to really learn and hone the techniques. It's totally different from any other kind of writing, even from content writing. I think people sometimes think that content writing and copywriting are the same, and they're really not. Content writing, your blog posts, that kind of thing, even your articles, those are designed to entertain or to inspire or to educate, which is great. But that's very different from copywriting, which is designed to sell or to persuade. Two very, very different things and two very different skill sets. Which is not to say that copywriters can't still write content for their clients if they want to. But they're two very different things. Being able to write content does not mean that you can write copy. And I think a big mistake that entrepreneurs make is that because they want their because they don't feel confident in doing it themselves, they will, like, anybody who says they can write copy, they're like, oh yeah, it's fine. Like I hear all the time, oh, my VA is going to write my copy for me. No. If your VA actually knew how to write copy, they would not be charging $20 an hour and also, answering your email. Your VA would be out there writing copy and being a professional copywriter and getting paid professional copywriter. Exactly. Your VA does not know how to write copy. That's so cute, but it'd be like, oh, you know what? I'm trying to think of a good example. The guy who rakes my lawns, he says he can rewire my house. So I'm just going to let him do that. Like, don't do that.
Yeah, definitely asking for trouble there.
Right?
Definitely, for sure. Right. No doubt about it. So Nicki, what do you see as the future, for copywriting, right? And I could probably kind of imagine the answer kind of based on our dialogue that we've had. But, obviously, once everything subsides, right? And you have whatever I don't like to use that thing new normal, because what we were doing probably wasn't normal, right?
Yeah.
So, whatever the reality is at the time when the pandemic subsides, what do you see from a trend standpoint that we should maybe be aware of as it relates to copywriting?
Yeah. Well, on one side, it just kind of keeps getting better for copywriters because companies, especially the newer companies, are becoming more and more savvy about the need for good marketing. There's so many good marketing resources out there that they're understanding how incredibly crucial it is to their businesses. And along with that, they're learning new terms like copywriter and about how important it is. So even more than like 10 years ago, businesses are seeing the value in skilled copywriters and are willing to pay for skilled copywriters. And if you talk to the, whether it is the multi-billion-dollar companies or even if it is the 8-figure, roughly solopreneur kind of, solopreneur but with a team underneath them, they'll say, oh yeah, a copywriter is incredibly crucial. So it's more and more, there's always been a need, but I think even more than ever before, there's almost what's more than a need, like a yearning for skilled copywriters. Yeah. And then on the other side, after the pandemic, if we can even say who knows, we're still in it. Yeah. But hopefully afterwards, if there's one, or I'm sure there may be a couple, but one small silver lining, it's that companies are really aware that they can work with people remotely, right. Whereas before they'd be like, oh no, you have to come into the office. It's really, really essential. No. Turns out it's actually not. So they're willing to work more with freelancers. And, we have a lot of students who want to take freelance clients, but also be on staff. And the cool thing now too, is that more companies are willing to work with people remotely. Whether part-time remotely or even full-time remotely. I've heard anecdotally a lot lately about new companies hiring people and saying, look, work from wherever you want to. You just have to be available for these hours, Eastern time or whatever.
Yeah,
which is absolutely a tremendous opportunity.
Yeah, and let's stay there for a quick second because I'm glad you brought that up, Nicki, because it leads me to another question that I hadn't thought of. But I did read some on a LinkedIn article this morning about the impact of remote work and what it's had on relationships, and that's been intriguing. And not just kind of like family or like romantic relationships, but just relationships all around, right? Within the workplace, outside the workplace. And it was interesting that, some of the things that are obvious, right? By not having the face-to-face contact, there's some mental health pieces and things like that go into it. But then also they're finding in some studies that relationships are being enhanced through remote work, that managers and leaders and within organizations have become more empathetic, more available, more interested in the person as opposed to just the chair. Office politics now don't exist near as much. So with that breakdown in office politics, now it just gets back to relationships and performance and not just seniority or who's hanging out at the boss's office the most and all that type of stuff. So I'd love to get your thoughts on kind of related to this subject of, particularly for copywriters, and this could apply for different industries, Nicki, is that notion that in the future, people won't necessarily have to live on the coast to work or get employed by these companies who tend to be, New York, Southern California, that sort of thing. So in the future, a copywriter could live closer to family in Ames, Iowa, for example, and still work for the New York firm or the SoCal firm, and maybe even run his or her own firm from right there in Ames and do extremely well, just as well, if not more, than if they were sitting, paying rent in Manhattan, in New York. What's kind of your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting. I mean, to be very clear, there are always, no matter where you live, there are opportunities, whether it is you start with local mom and pops or whatever, wherever you are, or you work for companies, do freelance remote work. Most companies are actually very open to working with freelancers remotely anyway. But yeah. I think it's going to be very interesting, particularly on the payment front, because we used to say, okay, when you're figuring out what your hourly rate is, because we have a whole system for helping people figure out their hourly rate and then their project rate and all that kind of thing. But we used to say, bear in mind where you live. If you live in Ames, Iowa versus New York, you're probably going to be charging a little bit less, or we used to say that. But now if companies are hiring from anywhere, there's much less of a unequal distribution of payments based on where you live. If someone's doing a great job on their copy and they live in New York City, and if someone's doing a great job on their copy and they're living in Ames, Iowa, there's a lot less justification for paying one person more than the other. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that shakes out. I think basically it's going to kind of lift everybody up all across the country, which is great, because how cool will it be to have, just in a lifestyle, a culture thing, to have more culture mixing, people from cities moving into the country or more rural areas. Like, isn't that just great for us all as human beings,
Yeah, I think it spreads out some of the population. And I think what you tie into the economics of it, which is, I think that people, so if you from the workforce standpoint, if you're working for a company, say in New York City, but you happen to be in Iowa, right? Then if you're getting paid based on, that New York pay scale, that could make a tremendous difference when you're living in Iowa, right? Or Kansas or wherever. And so same for SoCal. So I think that can make a tremendous difference. In kind of what elevates for everybody if that were to be a trend. So I think that's incredible.
Yeah it'll be really interesting to see how it shakes out and to see where people end up living, and to see, because I actually ended up moving during the past year and got a bigger place further out from the city, but more space, which I think everyone right now, and there's certainly a lot more space in Kansas than there is in Manhattan. Let's put it that way.
Right. Absolutely. So, as we kind of wrap up, Nicki, because this has been, tremendous dialogue. You talked a little bit about family earlier. Let me go there. What's the importance of family for you today? Obviously you spoke about your folks and, the influence that they had, for you kind of coming up. Talk about family today for you and how they play a role in kind of encouraging, with what you do.
Yeah, I've been very lucky with first of all, my family is just, they're very loving and very supportive and, goofy and wonderful. I've been very, very lucky. My parents, my brother, they're all fantastic people, and for my business, I got this very lucky intersection of my dad was in marketing, and my mom was an interior designer. She's also retired, but was an interior designer who worked for herself. So from my mom, I got that kind of entrepreneurial front. So the two pieces of those really work together well in the business that I'm in right now. But yeah, it's having that. I'm so lucky to have that base of emotional support and cheering me on and love, and I'm incredibly blessed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's incredible. That's definitely incredible, to say the least. So, Nicki Krawczyk is our guest today, the founder of Filthy Rich Writer. How can the audience get in touch with you? Obviously, you've said some very insightful, things today, things for us to all go back and think of, right? And I'm thinking about that for my own copy. And that sort of thing. So how can people get in touch with you if they have an interest in kind of working with you or learning a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So if they're interested in copy, they think they might want to be a copywriter, definitely follow us on all the socials, Filthy Rich Writer and all that kind of that thing. And you can also find a free training about it at freecopywritingtraining.com.
Awesome.
Yeah, and actually we also have a podcast as well, the Build Your Copywriting Business podcast. And we actually just launched, if you're interested in freelancing, but maybe not necessarily being a copywriter, we've just launched a new course focused on a proven framework for actually building a freelance business. And you can find that at Fired Up Freelance and freefreelancetraining.com. So many different ways to connect.
Yeah. Awesome. Just, tremendous stuff. Those links are in the show notes, MYB. And I want to take a minute to encourage you to, plug in with Nicki. She's a tremendous resource, as you've been able to hear today, as well as you hear from my dog. So, I definitely want you to plug in. So make sure that you do that. And click on the link in the show notes so that you can get plugged in with Nicki and her entire team. They're Filthy Rich Writers. So, Nicki, listen, without question, I want to thank you for taking time out, for being flexible, and for what you do to help, all of us in business be just a little bit better, with our copy and with our messaging, right? And I think that's tremendous as we move forward. So anyway, thank you so much. Look to remain connected, and definitely enjoy all the great things that you have, coming to you, and hope to have you back here at some point where we can maybe have a few laughs as things subside, and we can talk a little different, just like my dogs.
Yeah, right? I'm going to hang out with them as well. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a ton of fun.
Right. Yeah, they have fun all the time. I've got two Cocker Spaniels here. And then I've got kids out on spring break that aren't doing a damn thing about getting them. So go figure. But again, the beauty of doing things from home, right?
Right. Live and real life. This is that glamorous entrepreneurial lifestyle.
Yep, exactly. So thank you so much, Nicki.
Thank you.
And look forward to speaking with you again, okay?
Absolutely.
Yep, excellent. So that was our guest today, Nicki Krawczyk, the founder of Filthy Rich Writer. Go in the show notes and click on the links that you can connect directly with Nicki. And if you do so, or you connect with her on social media and that sort of thing, let her know that you heard her right here on the Minding Your Business podcast, okay? Listen, before we get out of here, there's three things that unite us all. And I always like to share after every episode, right? No matter where we're from, no matter what side of the tracks, no matter how you look in the mirror, despite all of that, right? There are three things that unite us all. We all want to be a little bit better for ourselves, a little bit better for our families, and a little bit better for our communities. And if we can keep that in mind with everybody that we interact with, everybody that crosses our path, everybody that we connect and tap in with, we can all collectively make this place just a little bit better. Champ, on the Minding Your Business podcast. Take care and go be great.